2023 at 4:30 PM, and I'm calling the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting to order. We have a quorum present. Number 2 on the agenda, public comment or suggestions. I see no public comment or suggestions. Number 3, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the October 2nd meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Motion by Sarah Watson, second by Tom Killian. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None are opposed. Motion passed. Number 4 on the agenda, discussion and possible action regarding the proposed SCS Swiderski River Life development pertaining to park and open space. And I'm going to turn that over to Jamie, our Parks Director.
All right, thank you. So this is a development that you have seen back in October, but usually it comes to the different committees based on if there's anything for you to talk about. And there are a couple things I would like the Parks Committee's feedback on that you can make a recommendation to the Planning Commission, I believe is the next spot that it's going. If you do have any specific questions about the development, Mr. Pfeiffer is here. But I have the latest, he supplied me with the latest plan that they had provided, and the two things that I wanted to talk about was the layout of the buildings. So right now they're very close to the trail along what would be the south side of the building, and then the trail and the wharf along the west side of the building. And some of the things that we have given them as staff as kind of minimum things that we need. And we'll get to I'll bring the plan up on the TV here in a second. But one of the things is I'm not as concerned with the trail on the south side of the building. They do come very close to it near the road, but there is space there for the trail to be moved so that we still could have a maintenance strip. What we usually like to do on the trails is have a 20-foot easement fully, and then the trail's in the middle of that so that we have the 12-foot trail in most cases, sometimes it's 10, 12-foot trail, and then we have a maintenance strip on each side so that we can bring the mowers up and down and not, mowing around a lot of the areas. Kind of maintenances are the area we really look at with a lot of these developments, because if it's a lot of small maintenance, it just adds a lot of staff time. This area already we contract out with Revi to do the landscaping of. So that is one area. The biggest one that I am having a little bit harder time with, but they are saying with the development that they need it, is how close that the building and the front walkway part of the building is going right up to the trail along the wharf. And that trail right now, if I can bring up the plan here, I can see if I can zoom in on this. So right now, you can see on the screen in front of you, let's see if I can make this smaller. I don't know, I'll make this little window go away. So the first trail I talked about is this trail along the canal, along the channel. As you see, we have plenty of space. And the setbacks are all within the right setbacks of the trail. It looks like they are staying away from the trail at the bottom part here, but it's just right up next to that setback. So we do seem to be okay, and we can maintain that fairly well, but they're staying within that footprint. The one here is along the riverfront trail. So this kind of covers what is there now. If you look at an aerial of what's there now, and I can bring it up if you have questions, is this concrete kind of striped area has contour to it. It's curved here. We've got some areas where there's a couple benches. It's not just the straight line of the trail. They are proposing to cut that and make it a straight line trail, and then they would have their, it looks like their breezeway, their stairs, their sidewalk of their, kind of the apron of their building that would abut right up to our trail. There is some seat walls in there. It looks like they are putting a couple of landscaping items in there. But this is something for you to be aware of, that this is going to be, this development now will be right up next to that Riverwalk Trail, right up next to that wharf. We do need a minimum of a 12-foot wide trail to get our trucks in and out in order to put those docks in. So that has been relayed to the developer. The last plan he gave me, there was 2 spots where it was just under 12, so I gave that back to Randy. They passed that on to the developer. I believe they're making that change. But this is just something that I thought that you as the Parks Committee should see, because it is going to change the feel and the look of that wharf, of what it is now, which we know a building going there will. But there is not, on this side, this doesn't really show it, but on the Wausau River Life Apartments, there is a pretty big maintenance strip there, and if I can bring up the aerial and show you that as well. Let me do that. So we do have a maintenance strip on the other side where it's much more grass in front of that building. Let's see, where am I? Bearings of where we at. Take that water off. Whoa, I'm way too far. Okay. So here is currently that the trail that's along there, and then you can see how this kind of curves there. We can relocate those benches. There's 2 of them that are memorial benches that actually have memorial plaques on them. They can be moved and incorporated, along the trail here. I know that the people that have those benches wanted them in that particular location, so we'll make sure that they go in that location. But here's where they're proposing to cut this straight into a 12-foot trail, and then they would go right up next to that. So as long as we can get our trucks in there, it is a requirement that we have to have, otherwise we wouldn't be able to put these docks in here. But if you look at this development on this side, I wonder if this is up to date. This is where their property line ended, is kind of where the silt fence is, because they're still constructing it in this picture. So there was, along this, there's still a grass maintenance strip and some separation between that building and the trail. So those are the 2 things with the design of the building, and I can go back to that. The other thing is that we would put in the recommendation that they follow our city ordinance and they pay park dedication fees, and they are a PUD, so I did put that in the write-up, that it would be based on, the PUD is $200 per apartment unit. They're having about 200 apartment units, so we get money that would go towards our park dedication fund. That is used to develop park space. We'll probably use it maybe to remove some of the park here, or it's put into a pot for those areas that don't dedicate land for a park and need a park in the future when we have different developments where we want to develop a park, is what those are used for. Our fees are very low, so they don't pay for a whole lot, but it is something the city does have. So with that, I guess I'll turn it over for any discussion, questions, comments, questions for Randy? I mean, like I said, that we're talking about the park stuff here. You're going to get this back through multiple different committees to talk about the entire development. But this was, if we have any comments that we want to provide back to Plan Commission or to the developer, this is the discussion time.
Any questions or concerns or suggestions? Carol?
Well, I think it's important to have that 12 feet if it's under that in some areas. I don't know. I mean, I know this came up before. This came up before council not too long ago, and we approved this. But this is like right on the water, and that's quite a bit different than originally, and I have concerns about that, I guess, just even, with having the building and the maintenance right on the waterway as well.
One of the things I forgot to mention is if they put this building or the pads right out next to the trail, that we would ask that there's some sort of a maintenance agreement, especially where there's the knee walls. So if weeds start growing up between the trail and their development, that they help maintain those areas, or that they maintain those areas for weed control. I don't know what this will look like in the future for, fixing our trail. I mean, you can do it. There's trails up next to buildings all the time, so we can do it, but it'll just make the repairs of the trails a little bit more difficult.
Tom, did you have a comment? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'd echo some of Alder Lucan's concerns, and when this had come to other committees and council, the development, this is something I believe I and other alders had brought up as concerns already, brought to representatives from the public, just the fact that there was sensitivity about the riverfront and the ability to not encroach upon public access and use of the riverfront. So I know that that particular battle or debate, I could say, has been settled, at least in terms of the development and the vote, but especially in light of those earlier concerns, I'd be more concerned now that there may be some additional encroachment. I'm not hearing a lot of options to address this other than what we've been told, and perhaps that's the singular option, but I would just echo Alder Lucan's concerns and just would not ideally want to see more encroachment on the public space there. Thank you.
Any other comments or suggestions? Alder Lukens.
I guess the other thing, with seeing this, I wonder if that would inhibit then the use of that, by other people or not, with as large as the building is going to be. I don't know if.
It's not going to inhibit the trail at all. It's still going to be able to, people will still, it's heavily used trail. If you have more people living down there, it's going to be used even more. It's just going to have a different feel. There's going to be close buildings to it. Mr. Pfeiffer?
Randy?
Thank you. Yeah, and I figured I couldn't get through this without talking at least once, so thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. One of the big things when we've talked about this development is really making sure that there is the opportunity that it feels like a public space. One of the things that on that backside, on the riverside there, we really wanted to emphasize is that this is lowered to the ground. If you go to River Life Apartments, up the river, down the river, depending on which way you're going, you'll see that area is really elevated. The idea is that this is going to be where they have like 3 or 4 retaining blocks there. This is going to be one level, and that on that space on the back is going to have a commercial retail component to it. So really trying to give it that public feel that if you're walking along the trail, it's a great opportunity to stop and get a cup of coffee or whatever you have. So there will be some maintenance along the trail there. What we've talked about is really taking the area along the trail, whether that's north, south, east, west, and really making that the responsibility of the developer in the future. There is some grass strips in there, but just making it clear that they're going to maintain everything within that trail area, which ultimately from the city perspective should save us some money. So it definitely is, we're trying to fit a lot into a small area, but I think with working out and getting some agreements in place, we should be set for the future.
Thank you, Randy.
Madam
Yes.
Chairman.
Alder Killian.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer. One question. I had touched on it earlier today prior to the meeting, but can you just confirm, and this has no relation or no kind of interplay with the any environmental matter with the DNR related to the development? Those are completely and separate?
Yeah, correct. So we're hitting a little bit of a snag with just the environmental closure for the DNR. That's completely separate from this. They're still moving forward with their site planning process. Just a matter of timing. We want to make sure that all the environmental concerns, DNR closure takes place so that we can go through this process in terms of the land sale.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So Randy, one question for you. When we talked about this as staff, so the property line is that dotted line, right, for them?
I would say it's roughly that. I think with what we've talked about in terms of having an actual surveyed, which it hasn't happened yet, it'll follow roughly those boundaries. Obviously, any of their private improvements are going to need to be on their side of the property line, but there may be some cases where that balcony or that area out back on the riverside is going to butt up right against that property boundary or within that general area. So that's where we need to have easements and make sure everything's in place from a legal perspective so that they're able to maintain their buildings and we're able to maintain our features.
Yeah, because right now how it shows, I mean, and usually we built the trail where there's a buffer, the property line would not be right at the edge of the trail, so we do have to see what that is. But if the property line is that dashed kind of line throughout here, then like this tree area won't be part of it, that would be, still city property, but these stairs here, the stairs are what would be, and that corner area would be kind of encroaching across that property line.
Correct, where they have those terraces that come down and meet the trail. Those are kind of the areas where you have the most interaction between the trail and the development. Similar to how River Life Apartments, you have the steps coming off that balcony there. Be very similar to that, but you're going to have one, two, three, at least three of those bumping up against the trail.
So if there's any recommendations you want to make to the plan commission or just comments, or if you are okay with this, then we'll pass that on.
Alder Lukens?
Thank you. I guess I would prefer that it's within the property line. I mean, you know more about this than I do. So I would prefer to follow, I guess what has typically happened in the past, and that the city has the access that it needs. And so, I mean, I guess that would be my preference. I would like that to go on to the plan commission with that kind of statement, I guess.
Alder Killian?
Yes, I would agree. And in that vein, if there's the ability, so I guess if we could minimize the impacts or adjustments we have to make to such things, I think it seems like it would be best for our public if the development made the adjustments to their proposed development, not vice versa, where we have to accommodate something that we just didn't know may kind of encroach more than we had anticipated. So I don't know if that's an option on the table, but it's similar to Alder Lukens, and yeah, that's my sentiment as well.
Do you have any comments there? Do you have any comments? Do you want to, if you could make that in maybe a form of a motion as a recommendation to the plan commission, that would be great, and then I could pass it on.
Gary Gissel, 319 Park Avenue, Alderperson, 5th District. I just want to reinforce we're just seeing the initial plans, and I think that we should almost ask the developer to accommodate what we see, rather than acknowledging through the whole process from now on that we're going to have to accommodate what they want. I think that we're early enough into the process that we could, the park committee can say, really, that those intrusions along the riverfront and that circle, not the edge coming into the creek there, they're intruding into public space, and there's not enough green space here to begin with for the public. And I think that we have to the city of Wausau has to be quite adamant, really, in protecting its public space. We're losing a lot of public space in this development, and I think that we should be adamant in telling developers that, we are pretty strong in advocating for our public space rather than letting the developer determine what that public space is. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Do we need a motion?
I would put that, I would ask that you put that in the form of motion.
Okay.
I'll try to make that motion,
That'd be great.
Madam Chair. Yeah, Alder Gisselman said it very well. Let me see if I can regurgitate that phrasing. But would it be specific enough for the Plan Commission to send forth the motion that the developer adjusts the plans and designs we saw today to conform with the space standards that are typical of the city, rather than us making the adjustments that have been described today? That's not a very concise motion, but I would welcome anybody's input on brevity for that. So
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah. I
Alder- okay.
think to clarify that motion, maybe that, building within their property boundaries once they're determined, and if we can have that maintenance strip along the trail would be ideal.
Okay.
At least a 3-foot maintenance strip.
that sounds great. I'd like my motion to reflect Ms. Polly's statement then.
I have a motion by Alder Killian and a second by Alder Lukens. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None are opposed. Motion passed. I'm going to go on to 5A in your packet on park updates. Regarding Athletic Park, the bullpen piping was updated to tie in the clubhouse and the concessions area to the rest of the park. Bullpen concrete around Liney's Lodge has been installed. A valve that was found to be damaged on East Wausau Avenue has been repaired, but the concrete still needs to be poured. The park is ready for winter. The elevators are closed off. Sandbags have been placed to keep the moisture out. Under the ball field irrigation for the infield at Memorial, and I believe that's pronounced Schofield.
We call it Schofield, but it is spelled that way.
Okay, because I know how Schofield is spelled.
I know.
Memorial and Schofield Parks has been installed and is ready to use next year. This was funded by the Wausau Youth Baseball. City Diamonds, we edged and worked on the infield at Brockmeyer and Oak Island Parks. It's amazing all the things that we do, and I'm not even aware that I was out there edging anything. Mowing, we still have some parks we would like to get to before the leaf mulching purposes. Oak Island restroom has been removed.
If you haven't noticed.
Yes. The materials for the restroom will be delivered at the end of November. The concrete slab will be installed this fall, and the restroom will be constructed over the winter. River Life, HVAC ductwork repair/redirect has been completed. Staff will monitor the facility to make sure it works properly. Docks have been taken out at the wharf. ADA launch has been removed for the winter. Skate park plans and bid documents are complete. Staff will work with designers to set bid dates this winter. Stewart Park, work to winterize the wall will take place the week of November 6th, which is this week. Sylvan Hill, the light and pole were replaced on Hill 2. Urban Forestry, 4 ash trees removed from around the gazebo at Sylvan Hill, and 2 elms were planted. Ash was heavily invaded by the emerald ash borer, and they were terribly invested. Stumps will need to be removed, and the fruit tree plantings in 10th Street Park did have some fruit this year, but they expect more next year. Vistas, we have cleared out the majority of vistas along the Riverwalk Trail, River Life, and vistas within parks. This is typically a fall task. Winterization, all seasonal water systems have been winterized. Fishing piers and kayak launches are being removed. Tennis and pickleball nets are also being removed. Alder Killian.
Well, one question, Madam Chair, it's about the bathrooms, like the Oak Island bathroom. Some residents have asked me, and I wondered myself, what was kind of the driving force behind demolishing those and building new ones?
The age and the fact they were a concrete block, they couldn't be ADA, they couldn't be retrofitted to ADA very easily without really knocking holes in the walls. So that was presented to the Parks Committee and the City Council last year as a CIP project and approved. If you want a kind of an idea of the type of material we're going to use for this restroom, it will look different than what was there. But the new one we're putting at DC Everest Park, it's like a cedar tinker toy type building. It's pretty cool how it's going together. We're having that same company. It's just going to be a much larger one, so it'll have the same amount of restrooms as Oak Island had before, and a family restroom as well. So we're going to add an additional one, but it will have that wood look, so it'll kind of match the park in the area rather than the concrete block.
Nice, thank you.
6 on the agenda, any future agenda items for our next meeting in December? All right, I'll move on to our next meeting. Number 7 on the agenda, next meeting date is Monday, December 4th, 2023, 4:30 PM, 407 Grant Street, Wausau, 54403, in the council chambers. I'm going to take a motion to adjourn the meetings. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion by Alder Watson, second by Alder Lukens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. None are opposed. Meeting adjourned. Thank you for your time.
Short and sweet. Thank you.